Tonight, an Oklahoma prosecutor filing formal notification that he will seek the death penalty against this man, Alton Nolan, a recent Muslim convert accused of beheading a co-worker and injuring another woman. Last night, we spoke to a man who said he attended the very same mosque Nolan did, worshiping there more than a decade ago and then returning as recently as 2011. Here is just a little of what he had to say. And note, at his request, we have concealed his identity.
To the public, the mosque will not promote terrorism or any kind of radical acts, but when they're among friends and congregants only, they will promote the true teachings of Islam.
Did they ever discuss the subject of beheadings? Was that ever discussed?
The only time that beheadings were discussed was in the means of which you confront the infidel, as it is related to in the Quran, that when you meet the unbelievers, you should smite at their necks. There is a teaching in Islam called taqiyya, which is deception. Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam himself, even said that war is deception. And the reason that they are so deceptive is that when they cannot do jihad physically, they attempt to do jihad by means of stealth, by endearing themselves to the media, endearing themselves to government, endearing themselves to the American people to slowly work their way in. But they all believe in their religion, which teaches that, according to the hadith in Sahih Muslim, that when you approach the non-believers, you must offer them a choice to convert, to live under Islamic rule and pay the jizya or poll tax and live in submission, or you will be fought against, which is jihad fi sabilillah, which is what you see now with ISIS and Al-Qaeda and various other groups throughout the world.
But clearly this can't be true of everyone who attends this mosque. I mean, they can't all be this radical.
Absolutely, not everyone. As Ayan Hirsi Ali has said herself, a Muslim will choose how much of their religion they wish to practice. However, the people that told me, the person that told me rather, about the concept of jihad and the choices that must be offered to non-Muslims was Imam Sohaib Webb, who was
He's the old imam at this mosque?
Yes, and he is now currently the imam of the Islamic Society of Boston.
Which is where the Tsarnaev brothers were going, the elder.
That's correct.
Okay, and he sounds like he is, this is him, this is a picture of him on the screen. He specifically was a teacher there to you, an imam there to you, and what specifically did he say?
He is the one that told me to not talk to the media about suicide bombings in Palestine or Israel. And he is the one that first told me about the concept of jihad, the teaching that Islam allows 3 choices to be made to non-Muslims, and eventually they're all going to have to make that choice to convert, to live under Islamic rule, or die.
Well, those remarks have been slammed by some Muslims. The Islamic Society of Greater Oklahoma City, the mosque in question, releasing a statement tonight stating, quote, anonymous speakers making uncorroborated allegations against minority communities is as un-American as it gets. Each and every allegation made against the mosque is false. The mosque is in good standing in our city and state. Sohaib Webb, our imam from 1998 until 2001, they say during that time he preached Islam's message of peace, compassion, mercy, love, and understanding, and continues to this day to be a force against violent extremism, as does the mosque. My next guest speaks out as a moderate Muslim who says she is worried about radicals hijacking her faith. Dr. Kanta Ahmed is author of In the Land of Invisible Women. Doctor, good to see you again. And so I want to talk to you about this because the allegations that he made about how there's this difference between what happens at the mosque and what happens publicly by some of these groups was surprising to many of our viewers. Is this something you've experienced?
Not directly in mosques, but it's chilling because what's going on in the United States at the moment is a tremendous battle, a battle to claim Islam as legitimate. That battle is between Islamists and those that practice civil Islam or pluralistic Islam. This is exactly how they do it. The mosques are their barracks, effectively. The believers become soldiers. And that's quoting from a Turkish poem that Erdogan endorsed. Islamists work in many ways, and this could be an example of one.
You are a Muslim. You love your faith.
I am indeed.
And you are an example of a moderate Muslim who doesn't believe in jihad, who doesn't go to mosques and plot jihad or secretly condemn Israel. I mean, there are millions of others just like you, are there not?
That's exactly right. And in fact, in the United States, most Muslims are not affiliated with mosques. Many of us make all of the observances, particularly Ramadan. And we're able to do that because of the freedoms and security provided by a liberal, secular democracy like the United States.
And yet, why is it so hard for some within the Muslim faith to just acknowledge that there is this form of Islam, this radical Islam, this Islamicism as some call it, that doesn't look peaceful, that doesn't sound peaceful, and that doesn't bear any true relation to the peace-loving religion that you practice?
Because I think the Islamists at the moment, those are the ones who are practicing an artificial, fictional version of Islam that is seeking a global caliphate, that does see democracy as a threat, that does extinguish pluralism and diversity. They have control of the narrative. We had this experience at Rutgers University earlier on this week.
Yeah, so you went there with a guest our viewers know well, Brooke Goldstein, to speak about Islam. And you as a Muslim woman, as a doctor who's been in Saudi Arabia, who's been, all over the world, tell us about the reception you got.
Well, exactly right. I went there as exercising the very bare minimum of my faith, which is, to quote the Prophet Muhammad, to expose injustices happening to Muslim women, children and minorities at the hands of Islamist governments. And I was challenged by a Muslim woman in a hijab who attacked me for not being visibly Muslim and questioning what right I had to speak about Islam. Never in my life, in 40 years of visiting Pakistan, in 2 years of living in Saudi Arabia, a decade traveling to the Arab Gulf, has anyone challenged me on appearance. I was also accused by the same woman of stoking Islamophobia by bringing to the attention human rights violations. That's an example of the silencing Islamists try and pursue when Muslims like me engage in public dialogue.
Is that a tactic? Because we've seen that repeatedly whenever we do a segment. Almost every time we do a segment on this subject, we get all sorts of complaints from CARE. That's the number one, that we're Islamophobic, and on it goes.
Excellent observation, because Islamophobia is a means to silence it. It's an absolutely, I'd say, malignant strategy. And very few people are brave enough to confront this at risk of all kinds of consequences. But calling me Islamophobic is just, in fact, their own evidence of their own delegitimization. Nowhere in the talk did I defame Islam in any way. In fact, I got the Muslim component of the audience to engage with me on Islam, and they yet were waiting to attack the credibility of myself and your frequent contributor Brooke Goldstein on our identities.
It's incredible. Trying to draw attention to violence against women in some factions of the Muslim world, which you would think, most would be in agreement on, most who don't practice in any event. Doctor, great to see you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Well, all eyes have been on